The acting president of Venezuela, teleSUR Rodriguez, held a working meeting on Sunday with the executive cabinet to discuss strategic lines within the framework of the State of Foreign Commotion decreed by the Venezuelan government after the armed incursion by the U.S. military forces in the country. In this context, the Venezuelan government ratified its commitment to peace and respect for international law and announced the consolidation of a plan to safeguard the integrity and sovereignty at the gathering. Venezuelan Communications Minister Freddy Ñañez presented the outline of plans designed to consolidate community democracy, social protection, and productivity. Two key commissions were created, a high-level one destined to work to secure the release of President Nicolás Maduro and first combatant Cilia Flores, and one aimed at guaranteeing and strengthening the sovereignty projects.
In the Council of Ministers, two commissions have been created. The first one is the High-Level Commission for the Release of President Nicolás Maduro Moros and the first combatant Cilia Flores de Maduro. This High-Level Commission will be chaired by Dr. Jorge Rodríguez Gómez, President of the National Assembly and head of the Dialogue and Peace in Venezuela, by our Foreign Minister Iván Gil, by our colleague Camila Fabri, and by myself.
Camila Fabri y por este servidor. Asimismo, se creó la Comisión del Estado Mayor.
The Agri-Food, Industrial and Community General Staff Commission was also created, which purpose and responsibility is to guarantee and strengthen our country's food sovereignty and supply projects.
In this context, the Communications Minister, while thanking the several demonstrations of support from around the world, further stressed the government's call for the immediate release of the kidnapped leaders.
Today was a day of great mobilization, of great displays of love, of great displays of spiritual desires with our peoples. And I'm referring specifically to what the world expressed with a great outcry in the streets of Europe, in the streets of Latin America, in the streets of Asia, in the streets even in the United States, and which has to do with the unyielding demand for the immediate release of President Nicolás Maduro Moros.
Irreductible por la liberación inmediata del presidente Nicolás Maduro Moros
and first combatant Cilia Flores. Our streets were filled with people, with 8-star tricolor flags, and a just and necessary demand for sovereignty and self-determination for the peoples.
The Venezuelan Consortium of Aeronautical Industries and Air Services, Conviasa, announced that it will resume its international air operations this Monday on their scheduled itinerary. In a statement, the consortium clarified that flights suspended on Saturday will resume at no additional cost to affected passengers. In addition to Conviasa, teleSUR and Avior Airlines also officially announced the resumption of their domestic flights from January 4th. This Sunday, U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy reported that the arbitrary and illegal restrictions imposed by them on Caribbean airspace to perpetrate the criminal attack against Venezuela were lifted on Sunday afternoon. And the Venezuelan government paid tribute to the 32 Cuban combatants killed in the U.S. attack against its national territory in January 3rd. Through an official statement in Caracas shared, these personnel were acting within the framework of cooperation between sovereign states and were carrying out institutional protection and defense tasks. Their actions were distinguished by their courage, discipline, and unwavering commitment to regional peace and stability. The people and the Bolivarian government of Venezuela expressed their deepest solidarity with the revolutionary government of Cuba, extending a fraternal embrace to the revolutionary armed forces and the families of the fallen combatants, whose sacrifice strengthens the historic bonds of brotherhood, sovereignty, and shared struggle between our nations. The Chinese government has condemned the attack carried out by the United States against Venezuela and the kidnapping of President Nicolás Maduro and first combatant Cilia Flores. Our correspondent Bruno Falsi has the details.
Greetings, colleagues. The Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi reaffirmed his country's stance on the recent invasion and bombings by the United States against military and civilian targets in Venezuela, as well as the kidnapping of the president of the country, Nicolás Maduro, and the First Lady, Cilia Flores. Wang Yi emphasized that no country can act as the word policeman or judge in the world, and that the sovereignty and security of all nations be fully respected in accordance with the international law. Let's now hear the statement of the Foreign Minister of China's Affairs.
我们从不认为哪个国家可以充当国际警察，我们也不认同哪一个国家。
We have never believed that any country can play the role of war policeman, nor do we agree that any country can act as an international judge. The sovereignty and security of all countries must be fully protected by international law. China has always opposed the use or threat of force, as well as any imposition of one country's will on another. China is willing to work with the rest of the international community to firmly uphold the United Nations Charter, maintain the fundamental principles of international morality, respect the sovereign equality of all countries, jointly safeguard world peace and development, and promote the building of a community of shared future for humanity.
Beijing's statement reinforced the pressures on the United States government, denouncing its recent actions as a violation of international law and Venezuela's sovereignty. The Chinese position also highlights the importance of strengthening the United Nations mechanism to prevent unilateral attacks for jeopardizing the world peace. With the United Nations Security Council meeting, China's position strongly supports the Venezuelan cause and the government. In previous statement, the Chinese Minister of Foreign Affairs demanded the immediate release of the President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, the First Lady of Venezuela, who were kidnapped in the United States. With this news, we return with you in the studios in La Habana, Cuba.
The acting president of Venezuela, teleSUR, held a working meeting on Sunday with the executive cabinet to discuss strategic lines within the framework of the state of foreign commotion decreed by the Venezuelan government after the armed incursion by U.S. military forces in the country. In this context, the Venezuelan government ratified its commitment to peace and respect for international law and announced the consolidation of a plan to safeguard the integrity and sovereignty. At the gathering, Venezuelan Communications Minister Freddy Ñañez presented the outline of plans designed to consolidate community democracy,